Hello, learner. Welcome to Mr. Quickest Teaches. I'm Mr. Quickest. In this lesson, I'll be analyzing William Shakespeare's Sonnet 18. It's part of poems for the GCSE or IGCSE anthology, one of the 15 poems. And I've analyzed all 15 of the poems, and it's part of a course, which you can subscribe to for only £5 a month, or you can buy the entirety of the course for £45 a year. That's if you have a year or more to prepare for the exams. Now, additionally, I also provide tuition as well, especially with writing essays. I have a sample A-style grade 9 essay for this poem. You can see it as part of the course if you click on the description. Furthermore, if you sign up or you need help with any of the other components, the prose, the drama, the unseen, or the poetry, which this is part of, you can just visit www.mrquickestteaches.com and then sign up. And then the thing is that the first lesson is actually free, so sign up, and then if you enjoy the lesson, that's fine. You can continue. If not, you look for other options. Let's go into the analysis. Now, this is how the poem, the poet, Shakespeare is one of the most known poets in the world. He was an English playwright, poet, actor. He's widely regarded as the greatest writer in England, or in the English language, and the world's preeminent dramatist. He wrote a number of sonnets. I was looking through a list the other day of the amount of sonnets Shakespeare wrote. It was a lot. He's often called England's national poet and the Bard of Avon, or simply the Bard. His extant works, including collaborations, consist of some 39 plays, 154 sonnets, 3 long narrative poems, and a few other verses. Shakespeare remains arguably the most influential writer in the English language, and his works continue to be studied and reinterpreted. So that's about Shakespeare, the Bard, of Avon. Now, this is how the poem appears in your anthology. In terms of the summary, the poem is about this speaker who is speaking directly to his love interest and telling her that he does not want to compare her to the summer day because she's more beautiful and more she's going to last longer. Essentially, that's essentially the summary of the poem, and then he goes on with hyperbole, quite exaggerations about the beauty of his lover. Now, let me begin by reading the poem Sonnet 18 by William Shakespeare. Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Thou art more lovely and more temperate. Rough winds do shake the darling buds of May, and summer's leaves at all too short a date. Sometime too hot, the eye of heaven shines, and often is his gold complexion dimmed, and every fair from fair sometimes declines, by chance on nature's changing course untrimmed. But the eternal summer shall not fade, nor lose possession of that fair thou owest, nor shall death brag thou wanderest in his shade, when in eternal lines to time thou goest. So long as men can breathe or eyes can see, so long lives this, and this gives life to thee. So that is the reading of the poem. Now, the first thing I want you to note, is the opening with a rhetorical question. I have a sample essay on this. You can look at it, like I said. But the poem starts with a rhetorical question. So the speaker opens the poem with a rhetorical question: shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Which creates the effect that he does not want to do such a comparison, but he will do it just to make his point. Now, we do not hear from his love interest or his lover. She does not respond. So it's a rhetorical question. Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? I don't think he wants to do it, but then he goes on to do it after all. Now, he says here that a summer's day is a metaphor for the best time of a person's life. So a summer's day can also literally mean, the most loved season of the year, but it could also be the best time of a person's life, as a metaphor. Observe the point of view of the poem, right? We see the use of the archaic thee, which is you in modern English, and signals that the poetic voice, which is I, is speaking directly to his lover, not to the reader. So it's like, think of it this way: you're passing by and then you can hear somebody speaking directly to their lover and saying, beautiful things or exquisite or lovely things to their lover. So that's essentially what is happening here. The speaker is not speaking directly to or speaking to the reader. He's speaking directly to his lover, and then he refers to the lover with the archaic variant "the." Again, that tells you that we're talking about, the Victorian era thereabouts, or maybe Elizabethan. I just don't want to be specific, but at least in that period. Now, he now uses hyperbole in the next line, the second line. He says, "Thou art more lovely and more temperate." So this is a direct claim that exalts his lover. That's a physical appearance, that's the lovely bit. And character, that's the temperate bit, right? So she's beautiful, physically beautiful, but then she's also temperate. So it means that she doesn't go off, get angry and act out a fool and all that. No, she's very, sophisticated, well refined, temperate, has the right temperament. So it's not only talking about the physical beauty, but also the temper as well. Because later on, when he begins to talk about summer, we're going to see that sometimes summer has all sorts of temper in the way the wind blows and whatnot. So observe here that he uses the hyperbole to exaggerate both of her attributes, her loveliness and then her temperateness, or the fact that she's temperate. Now, observe that he continues with this second person point of view when he says, "Thou art," so you are. In modern English we say you are more temperate, or you are more lovely and then more temperate. Lovely is a reference to a physical beauty, like I've said, right? Now, observe the use of repetition as well. The repetition of the word there, more lovely, more temperate. Now, the hyperbole is seen by the twice repetition of more after each positive adjective to emphasize a superiority to the summer's day. Temperate, like I said, is like moderate, evenly tempered. It's a reference to her perfect character and demeanor. So she has like the perfect character and perfect demeanor. Now, from lines 3 to 8, he begins to list the imperfect aspects or negative things that we can see in a summer's day. Now, students sometimes ask me, how do I write an essay on this? For me, if I was directing students to write, I'll tell them to speak about what happens in the first two lines, and then what happens from line 3 to line 8. So there are 6 negative aspects of what people consider a perfect, or something that people consider perfect, which is summer. That's what we see in lines 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Now, let's look at the first negative. The first negative is that rough winds do shake the darling buds of May. Rough shows that the ferociousness, remember, temperate in terms of the description of his lover, but rough shows that it is ferocious, foul-tempered nature of the winds. So unlike his lover that is very, perfect in her attitude and manner, in summer, sometimes the wind is foul-tempered and ferocious. Do shake the buds of May carries a tone of certainty. So this is something that happens and points to how they are ruffled, even though they are almost ready to shoot. Buds of May, buds means that very soon they will shoot and they will come, they will come flower essentially. And what does the ruffling do? Sometimes it kills them off. So shoots as tender and love buds that are fledging in May. So it roughs and then it kills them essentially. But his lover does not have that temper tantrum or temper problems. Second negative, and summer's leaves are all too short a date. So the first negative is the temper. The second is the short-lived nature of summer. So summer is fleeting, it is brief, it is short-lived. In effect, the speaker is arguing that summer gives extremely short leases, which does not allow people to fully enjoy themselves, unlike his lover. So lease is a terms of a tenancy agreement. Now, the next or the third negative that we see is that he says that sometimes the temperature becomes extremely high. or experiences a heat wave. Sometimes it happens when the heat wave and then people die. So the third negative reason why it cannot be compared to his lover, sometimes too hot the eye of heaven shines. The eye of heaven essentially is a metaphor for the sun. So that's a metaphor, an allusion to the sun. Now this characterization suggests that without it, heaven cannot see. But sometimes it is too hot. The eye of the sun, the eye of heaven is the sun, like I've said. Now, the fourth negative that the speaker reveals is, they are opposites. Observe what happens there. He next points to an opposite, yet negative manifestation of summer, and often is his gold complexion deemed, which is a way of highlighting the frequency of multiple extremely cloudy or overcast days. So summer, where you're supposed to see the sun and it's supposed to be shiny and bright, sometimes it is cloudy and overcast. So summer has too many of those days. And so it doesn't even shine as bright as it ought to, even though it's supposed to, be considered the perfect or the best time of the year, especially for those living, in the northern hemisphere or in the temperate regions of the world, actually. Now, his use of hairs in reference to the sun is an anthropomorphism, right? While gold complexion deemed suggests that the precious mineral appearance of the sun is less intense. So the sun has like a golden sheen to it, but then sometimes it's dimmed. And so it doesn't shine as bright as. And that those are not like summer days that people are going to enjoy. Because, it becomes even more dreary and cold. The fifth negative that he mentions is, and every fair from fair sometimes declines. So it's his way of saying that all that is beautiful in nature loses certain measure of its beauty during summer. So during the summer months, there's a decline in the beauty. Again, something that we do not see with his lover. So incrementally, summer has like negative effects on it. So bit by bit, summer sort of rocks it up the wrong way. So every fair means all that is beautiful. So everything that is beautiful loses its beauty over time, especially during the summer months. Now observe the use of anaphora and the poet repeats "and" as the first word in multiple lines, which qualifies the word as an anaphora and powerfully brings into focus that he is listing multiple negative aspects of summer. So he actually lists, multiple of them, but this time we've seen 5. And we also see the repetition of summer as well, to emphasize the time of the year and show that it is central to the argument that he's making. Now let's look at 2 reasons for the 5th negative. So remember, we said that there are 5 negatives. Now he gives 2 reasons for the 5th negative. He says, by chance, or nature's changing course, untrimmed. By chance attributes the loss of the beauty that we see in nature in the previous lines. By chance, it happens by chance. It's not something that is, planned. Or nature's changing course attributes it to the passage of time and natural phenomenon. So just by natural phenomenon, things in nature, aspects of nature lose their beauty. Untrimmed shows that they are stripped of decoration or they are thrown off balance. So that implies that the natural order of things have been destroyed just by the passage of time, and summer can do nothing to sort of improve the situation. So summer cannot be compared to his lover. Now, from line 9, we see a vote or a shift in the poem. So in lines 9 and to 11, the speaker mentions 3 things that would not happen to his love interest. Remember, he starts off the poem with a rhetorical question and then claims that his lover is more lovely and more temperate. Then he lists 5 negatives of summer and then mentions the reason for the 5th one. So from lines 9 to line 11, he begins to tell us things about his love interest. Now, the first thing that he says, but the eternal summer shall not fade. Now, the word "but" there signals a contrast or juxtaposition. That we have the eternality of his lover or a foreverness, to the briefness or ephemerality or the short-livedness of summer that he mentioned, in line 4. Now, if you look at line 4, it says, and summer's leaves at all too short a time. But I said, when it comes to his lover, it says, no, but that eternal summer shall not fade. So she has an eternal summer that is beautiful, perfect, a talk of the town, something that is highly desired. Now, let's look at the change in the point of view as well. He says, thy. So signals that the speaker is still speaking directly to his lover, not the reader. Please note this. So in the second person point of view, because the eke die or thy is the modern variant of your. Then the second thing that he says about his lover is that nor lose possession of that fair thou owest, or thou ownest, what you have, what is your property. So his fair that is beauty. Remember we talked about and every fair from fair. But here you're saying that a fairness is something that she owns. It's a property. So it just opposes the constancy of the speaker's lover's beauty to the incremental loss of beauty in nature. We saw that in line 8, and every fair from fair sometimes declines. But here it says no. Don't lose possession of that fair thou ownest. So lose possession is a euphemism. Was an euphemism for not having no longer having something. You've lost it. By euphemizes it. But for its love interest, is something that she's going to own or she's going to possess forever. Also, the characterization fair thou owest suggests that the beauty is the property of the speaker's lover. She owns it. So how do you lose something that you own, that is a part of you? So it can never be taken away from her by anyone. So owners is another word for possess or own. Again, he uses another anaphora. So we see the repetition of nor as the first word in the 10th and then in the 11th lines, because the speaker is listing. And he also emphasizes two negative things that cannot or can never happen to the speaker's lover. Now, in the next line it says, nor shall death brag thou wanderest in his shade. So that suggests that the speaker's lover is immortal. She will never die. So love will never be able to brag or say that, she's hanging around in his shade. Death brag also personifies death and suggests that it can never boast that it has the speaker's lover walking aimlessly in his shadow or in its shadow. No, that can never happen. She's going to live forever. She's never going to die again. She's immortal. So shade is an allusion to darkness or shadow. Then he continues in line 12 and says, when in eternal lines to time thou growest. So when I read this line, what came to my mind were two perpendicular lines, right? So it means lines that will never meet. So the speaker's lover is, going, and then time is also going. They will never meet. So in essence, she is immortal. It's an allusion to the immortality of the speaker's love interest, and provides vivid visual imagery of her on a parallel line to personify time. So time is growing, she is also growing, and that means she's living forever, existing forever. Growth also points to a ceaseless increase. So she's always going to increase in beauty, in significance, in name. Then in the 11th line, he begins or turns his attention to the poem. So it says, so long as men can breathe. So if people can breathe, suggests that as long as humans exist in this world and they can breathe or they have eyes to see, which is a way of saying that both will always happen. I mean, just think about it. He's claiming that if the world still exists, if the world has not been destroyed, then human beings can breathe and see. That's what he's speaking about there in the 13th line. Then he continues again with an anaphora and says, he repeats so long, as the first words of line 13 and 14 again qualifies those words as an anaphora. So we see that and is repeated in lines 6 and 7. Nor is repeated in lines 10 and 11. And we also see so long being repeated again in lines 13 and 14. And again, it signals that the speaker is listed. Right? So the things whose existence means that the memory of his lover will exist forever. This is a reference to the poem. So long lives this. So essentially, he's pointing to this poem and saying that as long as this poem exists, as long as people read this poem, as long as this poem is in this world, you're always going to live. Long live this is also a reference to this poem, that's Sonnet 18, and suggests that the speaker thinks that its existence is another reason for the continued immortality of his lover. If every printout of this poem is not destroyed, if it's in existence, then the lover is always going to exist. Now let's look at the use of personification there. It says, long lives this, personifies this poem. So it shows that the poem has a life of its own. Just like summer, it's alive. And it creates the impression that it breathes, the poem breathes, and has all the abilities of a living thing. We also see the use of repetition as well. The speaker's repetition of this, in that line, the final line, or line 14, emphasizes the importance of the poem, or Sonnet 18, and creates the impression that he is pointing to it. And this gives life to thee. Suggests that the poem has life-living capabilities. Not for everybody, but it's a source of life for the speaker's love interest. So that essentially is the analysis of the poem. Now, in terms of the themes of the poem, we have the theme of love, the exaggerated language of love, the eternality of love, beauty in the eye of the beholder, which is an idiomatic expression, poetry and inspiration for love. There's a saying that at the time of love, everybody becomes a poet. In terms of the tone, we see that the speaker is quite boastful and proud, among other tones. I think he's also excited as well, and then he can't sort of contain himself. He's very, very proud. Now, the poem is recounted mainly in the second person point of view, even though we hear directly from the speaker and says, shall I compare thee? So there's this sort of blend here. But in effect, the speaker is speaking directly to, his love interest, who he thinks, is more beautiful than the summer day. Now, in terms of the form and structure of the poem, this poem, Sonnet 18, is a Shakespearean sonnet. That means that it has 14 lines, or it's a 14-line poem with an A-B-A-B, C-D-C-D, E-F-E-F, G-G rhyme scheme. So essentially, the poem can be broken into 3 quatrains. Quatrains are 4 lines, essentially. So line 1 to 4, lines 5 to 8, line 9 to 12. Then we also see a rhyming couplet as well, C and V, which makes the poem very musical and easy to remember. Additionally, I think the structure of the poem, the fact that it has a rhyme scheme, also shows us that, it's like, what sonnets are. Sonnet essentially means a short song. The poet or the speaker is written sort of this short love song to his lover. The poem also has what can be described as an iambic pentameter. That essentially means that each line of verse, has 5 metric feet, each with an unstressed syllable, followed by 1 long stressed syllable. So, for example, shall I, that's what we're seeing there. So, shall, unstressed. I compare, so it's like gives it a da-dum, 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 da-dum rhyme scheme, rhythm, sorry. So the poem, each of the lines, if you count it, has 10 syllables, 5 unstressed and 5 stressed. So there you have it. Sonnet 18 by William Shakespeare has been simplified. Like I mentioned, this analysis is part of a course that contains the rest of the analysis and also sample A-star or grade 9 essays. Additionally, you can just subscribe to it for only £5 a month, or you can buy the entirety of the poem for £45 a year. Now, the usefulness of it is that you have all the 15 poems in one place, so you don't need to, scamper around social media looking for the rest of it. Additionally, you can also sign up for tuition as well. So for all the components, prose, drama, and the unseen, and the poetry as well. I mean, if you've analyzed it, you've listened to this analysis, and you're still a bit confused, you can just reach out to me, send me an email, mrq@mrquickesteachings.com, or you can leave a comment in the comment section. Now, additionally, like I mentioned, with the tuition, the first lesson is a free lesson. It's a trial lesson essentially. So you can sign up, join the lesson, either our group lessons, or if you want one-on-one lessons as well. When you join the group lessons, you see how it goes, and then you can try and see if you can make arrangements and if there's availability for one-on-one lessons. So here you have it. William Shakespeare's Sonnet 18 has been simplified. On to the next lesson, I'm Mr. Quakers. Bye-bye.